Three Chicago police officers involved in the fatal shooting of an unarmed teen. They have been stripped of their powers, and the department, it has released the video, which is raising a lot of questions.
If we don't get no justice!
Demonstrations in Chicago. That over the shooting of unarmed car robbery suspect Paul O'Neill by the police.
Put your hands behind your back!
Two officers' body cameras capturing them firing their guns. That at the stolen Jaguar driven by O'Neill last month. The car then smashing head-on into a patrol car. What's shown in these videos is raising concerns within the top brass.
Our policy clearly states that we're prohibited from firing at moving into or at moving vehicles if the vehicle is the only use of force.
But what's not seen is the shot to the back that later ended O'Neill's life. The police superintendent suggesting the officer who killed the 18-year-old after he ran from the police didn't turn his body camera on until after the shooting.
Let's be clear about this too. In that particular district, they had those cameras maybe about a week. Whenever we introduce new equipment and new technology, there's going to be a learning curve.
The department still facing criticism for its handling of other police-involved shootings, including the death of an unarmed teen, Laquan McDonald, in 2014. Now responding to this case, stripping the three officers who fired their guns of their police powers and vowing to take a hard look at overall training and tactics.
Seeing a lot more transparency with respect to the Chicago Police Department in this shooting than what we've seen in previous police shootings.
And joining us now is Michael Murphy. Michael's former lieutenant commander, detective of the NYPD. Michael, as always, thank you. What was also caught on camera out of this was cops after the shooting screaming at the kid on the floor. A couple of them were high-fiving. One of them yelled, "Turn off your camera," to another one. Whenever this happens, there's two groups that go into corners, and then there's the middle. One group, all cops are bad, every shoot is, the guy had it coming. Then the other one is, no cop can never do anything wrong. And then there's the middle. From what you know of this case, and there's clear policy. You heard the chief there's basically saying it, that you can't shoot at a moving vehicle if that's the only thing in question. I mean, there's not an active gun on the person or whatever else, let alone shoot into it. What should be going on right now? And if you're a cop in Chicago, are you saying, this is a stain on the police force, these guys aren't me?
Well, I think that assessment of them, I don't agree with that. I don't think that they're looking, other cops looking at these three cops as being bad cops. There clearly is a policy violation. You're not allowed to shoot at cars unless there's something other than a vehicle used as deadly force. That's a policy violation. It's not a criminal violation. The New York City Police Department has had that policy in place. I went on police department in 1987, so close to 30 years. Chicago just instituted that policy, I believe, in 2014. So it's only 2 years old. Whether or not these officers were trained on that, I don't know. I'm going to say they were. I mean, that's a big policy change to only shoot at vehicles if they're using a means other than the vehicle to hurt you. But it's a policy, and that's going to be addressed. I think, but you have to look at the overall picture of what happened here. This is a stolen car. It's a car thief. He's using the vehicle as a deadly weapon. We have to get away from that rhetoric that, oh, the policy states we can't. It's still being used as a deadly weapon. Now, you see how he rammed head-on into that one police car. Not serious physical injury or death can occur out of that. But what made the situation, I believe, a little worse was those officers that began shooting at the vehicle as it passed them in the direction that the other car was traveling to. And that officer, when he did turn on his camera afterwards, did say, "I heard shots." I don't think he knew where they were coming from, but it's obvious he was coming this way.
Some of the ancillary sound that everyone's heard by now, turn off your cameras, or high-fiving the guy and screaming at the kid who's bleeding on the pavement, you know? It's got a bad look to it. But there's this constant circle, you guys see it all the time, where the public believes there's a blue wall. No matter what happens, basically you could have the cop with the best record, right? And then you have a cop doing some numbskull stuff here. And if the wall goes up, they all get painted with the same brush, you know? You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
This is, they didn't follow policy. Now maybe let the facts play out at trial, but to already abet what they did, I think sends a bad message too.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt about that. And you have to let the facts play out, and you have to have the investigation play out. And I mean, they released the video pretty quickly, which was a big plus. And that last video that they were talking about with the unarmed teen was killed, they didn't release that video for a while, and it took a lot of political pressure for them to do that. So they're making steps in the right direction. They're instituting body cameras, which I'm a big fan of. I think every police officer should have a body camera.
And what happens if they don't turn it on?
Well, I don't know what the procedure for Chicago PD is. I don't know what their
Well, what
actual...
happened in New York if a guy didn't turn his on here and he was involved in a shoot like this? To many people, it would scream that it was convenient.
It definitely screams it, and sometimes we can be our own worst enemies when we do things like that. The Superintendent Johnson stated this particular precinct only had these body cameras for about a week to 10 days. So, and he's right, there is a learning curve with new technology. With any new tool you give police officers, you're going to have a learning curve, and you're also going to have officers that are going to resist
And
the change as well.
Once the learning curve is over, what should be the penalty for a cop that either turns his camera off or encourages others to turn their cameras off? Should they be stripped of their badges?
Well, in this case, they were. I mean, for the policy
I mean
procedure.
permanently.
Well, that, I mean, you'd have to see whether or not that's depending on the situation. I mean, if you're just going to say, hey, you turn this camera off, we're going to fire you. In the NYPD, speaking about the blue wall of silence, Ray Kelly, back in the early 90s, instituted, if you got caught lying in an official department investigation, you will be fired. So will it go to that point? I don't know, but it depends on on what the situation
To the other side, Dom, stuff like this happens, right? It just confirms all the worst suspicions out there. Whether it's fair or not, it's like, see, you know, what we were saying all along was true.
Richard, I'm going to be completely honest. This is nothing new to the black community. This happens all the time in the black community. The only thing that's new, to be very frank with you, is now white people are discovering it because of the video. Do you think this is new in the black community? I'm not speaking to you because I know you to be a good man and has worked in black communities and done a great job. I'm talking about the cop. That's why many of us don't support the video camera. I mean, because Richard, every bad cop in America knows, stop, do what you're gonna do. Now he's in cuffs and makes him look bad, turn it back on. The only way that's gonna work, the officer has to have, and I don't know how that's possible, have no control over these cameras. None of this, the young man should not have been fleeing in a stolen vehicle. But who made those cops? The police officer, the judge, and the executioner. None of this is new, Richard. In minority communities, it goes back 50, 60, 100 years. It happens.
Well, the other issue for me always with this is, we got into this as to, it's complicated. What do you do with a stolen vehicle? But guys know a lot more than me. Guys who've won a badge like yourself, they've come to the conclusion that you could hit and have innocent people. Or the guy running from the cops is going to run up on the curb and kill a pedestrian or whatever else. We've had a lot of these cases. It's not just, you know, the guy that the perp you're trying to collar here. It's all the other ancillary people that could be caught up in it. Now, I want to pivot for a second. We saw NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton announce that he's stepping down effective next month, and he's being replaced by Chief of Department James O'Neill. First of all, were you a little surprised by the timing? People said he probably retired before the end of the year, but it did seem kind of sudden.
It seemed very sudden. I think recently he gave an interview where he said he may step down at the end of de Blasio's term. So, and within a week or two, he was announcing his resignation. So yeah, I mean, his reason is it's financial. He says his father recently passed away, and his father was in straits, and he said, I need to make more money, and that's why he left. I don't know what the politics behind it played into him leaving. I do know that I was around when Bratton first came on to the NYPD, and I was an NYP officer when he was in transit. So, and he brought to the NYPD the CompStat well, we don't know what it turned into. I believe he came back for legacy reasons. I think he had issues with Giuliani, as you know. Giuliani got rid of him when he got a little bit of the publicity for the crime that was going down, which, you know, to me it was all Bratton and the police department. And I believe he left with a bad taste in his mouth, and he came back under de Blasio and asked to come back because he's a successful police commissioner, he's a special law enforcement officer. But the politics that came to play with Black Lives Matter, the police shootings, he couldn't survive in this climate. And
was there a feeling among rank and file that Bratton had to bite his tongue, but he and the mayor weren't exactly always on the same page? There was a lovey-dovey press conference at the end. They couldn't praise each other enough. What do you understand for the relationship between the mayor and the commissioner?
Well, they definitely had their moments behind closed doors. There's no doubt about it. They definitely did. But as a vote of confidence to Bratton walking out the door, he promoted his #1 uniform
Well,
officer.
what do you know of O'Neill? Does he have a good reputation?
He's got a great reputation, and it sounds odd. He's an outsider to the NYPD, if that makes sense, because he was a transit police officer before the merge, or as the transit police, the hostile takeover, and that's where his relationship with Bratton started, was with the transit police. So if you're having a philosophical difference with your police commissioner, you're not going to hire his #1 to replace him.
Yep.
So to me, that's a vote of confidence for what Bratton has
And
put
if I
in
was
place.
cynical, Dom, though, I'd also say I want to make sure my commissioner, who is basically my most important surrogate that I have right now, isn't taking shots from the sidelines at me. And if I keep his #1, I'll make sure of that between now and next November.
Yes, I agree with you. The assessment is correct. Something went on between Bratton and de Blasio where Bratton couldn't take it anymore.
Do you think it had anything to do with Assemblyman Blake?
Well, Assemblyman Blake, I saw him last week. He's officially going around taking credit for Bratton stepping down. I don't think it was Blake. I think it was a group of... Bratton couldn't take the climate anymore of Black Lives Matter, of his police being under attack, and also...
In fact, he said that was his regret in an
right,
interview you did
but
yesterday,
Richard,
that
let's
he
also
wished
keep in mind
the climate was
that
better.
Bratton, him and Kelly hated each other. Kelly, police commissioner twice. Bratton's got to be police commissioner twice. So now Kelly's out there making a ton of money. Now Bratton wants to go out there and make a ton of money. And Bratton, here's the most important thing. Keep in mind, he's leaving hands-free while the department is under investigation on a number of fronts, from cops using planes with hookers flying the commanders, not just cops. So Bratton gets to go. It didn't happen on my watch. I'm out.
Interesting time.
Yeah, and let's not forget that de Blasio is going to have a huge problem with this re-election. Talk about under investigation.
You are so diplomatic,
no,
Professor.
talk about under investigations. He needed Bratton. He had Bratton for this time. He didn't treat him well. And Bratton is now out. And I agree that, you know, the #2, I think it was a smart choice on de Blasio's part, but I think it's because de Blasio recognizes that without Bratton, and he's not going to have Kelly, he has big trouble in the city.
And to confirm what Jeannie's saying, you folks should check out the latest Quinnipiac poll. The number's not good for his honor. All right, coming up next, we're going to shift gears to sports, take a look at A-Rod's big retirement announcement. Hopefully there's not more than one. Stay with us.